Hi, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are today. This is Hadil Dabag with CA Technologies. I'm joined here by Kathy Hickey from Product Management and our presenter, James Crosby from Presales. We'd like to welcome you to our new monthly 101 demo webinar series for CA Identity Service. For those who don't know about CA Identity Service, it's our new Identity as a Service solution from CA Technologies that we brought to market last November at CA World. As part of this series, every month we're going to be demonstrating Identity Service and highlighting the latest capabilities. So if you get value out of the webinar today, you're welcome to join future sessions to see the new capabilities that are getting released on a regular basis. If you have any questions throughout this presentation, we invite you to put your questions in the chat at any time, and we'll open up at the end for a Q&A. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to James. He'll give you a quick intro on the solution and a demonstration. James, over to you.
Great. Thanks, Hadil. Can you hear me?
Yes.
We can.
Okay. All right, everyone. So like Hadil said, my name is James Crosby. I'm a senior consultant here in our security pre-sales group, and I specialize in our identity and access management products. So like we said, today is going to be interactive. If you have questions, please send them to the chat window, and we'll address them as we come up. I've got a couple slides here. We're going to talk about identity service and its basic functionality and some of the things that we've been working on recently, and then we're going to jump into a demo. So today we're going to talk about why we really need to simplify the experience that our workforce goes through and how we can do that in a way that empowers application owners and how it affects both SaaS and hybrid deployment models, because this is a changing arena. We know that there are a lot of things going on with identity and access management that we have to be aware of, and so being able to be flexible and agile with that helps out a lot. And that's where we will step into our benefits and then jump into a demo. So today, identity management has traditionally been run by on-premise products and has been slowly making its way to this kind of new SaaS approach where I can get things as a service, they're in the cloud, I'm not always managing everything, but there are caveats with that. There's this balance that we have to strike, and it doesn't always fall into these three buckets where we can actually simplify our experience, where we can actually empower application owners and manage identity sprawl and the attack vectors that get opened up. And with CA Identity Service, we can bring that to our customers and do it in a seamless way that really provides a best-of-breed experience so that when we're giving access, delegating access, managing our identities that we have out there to these various applications, we can do so in a secure way that makes everyone's life easier. So what if we could come to a single dashboard where I have my applications laid out in front of me? We can do that with CA Identity Service. We have rich bidirectional integrations for certain applications which can go out and really simplify the way that I gain access to different pieces in my workday experience. And so I don't have to search around on maybe my internal company wiki or ask the next guy over to figure out, hey, how do I get access to this stuff? And then I don't have to also deal with the kind of headaches that go along with trying to figure out, do I have the right login information? Do I have all the right credentials to go ahead and gain access? We can further strengthen the security that we put in front of our users by using two-factor authentication so that if we need to, we can make sure that the right people are accessing the right services. And then we can take some of the really nitty-gritty stuff that can really soak up a lot of time in the enterprise and make that into self-service. So password management can often be a huge drain on any of our service desks, and if we can really put that back on the hands of the users where they can manage it themselves, it really simplifies the way that we do identity management. Now, one of the big things we've been working on with CA Identity Service is making it work very, very specifically with CA Single Sign-On. And CA Single Sign-On, for those that don't know, is our enterprise-grade single sign-on solution. And it would be great if there was a bridge, right, that we could utilize to give access to all these single sign-on applications that we already have through a SaaS deployment, through CA Identity Service. And we've done that. With some configuration, what we can do is allow CA Identity Service to connect to CA Single Sign-On and really provide a very seamless transition to not only just giving access to applications, but displaying it to the user that makes it very, very easy for the end user to actually use. So we get all the benefits from our existing CA single sign-on implementations, but we can extend the reach of how we're actually going to give that to our users. And then, of course, if we need to, we can make CA SSO our identity provider, and again, further expanding the reach that we have. Now, administrators often have to know that they have control over their applications. We don't want one global admin for everything. That delegation structure really doesn't work for anybody. It makes one person do all the work. And so with CA Identity Service, what we can do is go out and allow our administrators to delegate access. So I can have different groups managing their particular applications, and that way the right people are in the know, the right people have what they need, and they can do so in a seamless interface, which makes it very, very easy. And we can get even more granular with that. With some of these integrations, what we can do is literally give per application access levels that the end user never even has to see or touch. All they know is that they can go to their dashboard and log in and gain access to what they need. Now, shadow IT is kind of a growing concern because we know that it's very easy to go out and buy a SaaS application. Swipe the credit card, make sure that I get what I need for my project, but it may not fall under my corporate security policies or structure. And that's a big concern today because of the prevalence of SaaS applications. So what we can do is allow CA Identity Service to kind of bring those in so that we have that delegation access model in front of it and that we know who's accessing what and what information is out there. So we can bring it in and reduce that attack vector that is going to be kind of glaring on our audit reports when we go out and see exactly what is being accessed, who's got access to what. So here's a very, very basic diagram here for Identity Service. This is not showing you all the nuts and bolts that go into it because there's complexities that are under the covers, but in a very, very simple way, this is how our deployment model looks like. So we have Identity Service here in the center, and then of course the applications that we want to gain access to on the right. The users over here on the left, and what they can do is literally just hit their dashboard and gain access to the applications they need. We do have some additional options that come along here where we have maybe an HR source or a people source where we import users from. And then once those users are into Identity Service, we can use our rules-based provisioning engine to give access to these applications on the right. On the bottom, we see that, hey, maybe I have an existing CA single sign-on deployment or something on-premise, and we can literally, again, bring that in through the integration, direct integration with CA Identity Service. So, why would I really want a solution like this? Maybe I have a good grip on the way that I'm doing things right now. Maybe I have a very good practice, but we know that the enterprises are changing nowadays. There's a big push to adopt not just our existing on-premise products, but to make sure that we bring all of our products, anything that's in the cloud, under control so that it works with the business. And that allows me to be agile. It allows me to understand what's going on. And it allows me to quickly bring things under control so that I know I'm secure. It also gives me a very, very big leap in productivity so that my users can gain access to what they need and have it in one place where it's really simple. Now, Identity Service itself offers out-of-the-box bidirectional integrations with different applications, and we'll see that here in just a second in the demo. We also provide the specific integration with CA Single Sign-On, which allows us to maximize existing spend in our IT security. And of course, we're all about experience. We want to make sure that the best experience is given to our users and that that reflects through everything that they do. So as we'll see here in just a second, our dashboard is simple, it's intuitive, and for administrators, it brings a lot of different features right to the fingertips where they can gain access to things seamlessly. So with that said, we're going to go ahead and jump into the demonstration. All right, so you all should be seeing my web browser, and I'm going to sign in to a tenant that I've been set up with and playing with. And right here is my Launchpad. This is Launchpad/dashboard. So if my terminology got a little mixed up there, I'll go ahead and make sure that I correct that here. So as an administrator, I log in and I have dashboard or Launchpad here, and it has applications that have been given to me by rules. Now, the first thing that I'm going to do as an administrator is onboard somebody. And so I can see that I already have people that I've onboarded. And a very easy way to do this is to just click on Add Person. Now, this is a manual onboarding, and it's not always something that a user is going to have to do manually. But for the sake of flexibility and agility, I can do it very easily here. So I'm going to onboard a new user. And right here, I have a permissions piece. This allows me to determine what I'm going to give that user off the bat. So maybe some birthright style access, or just levels of ability to interact with CA Identity Service. I'm logged in as an administrator. I have different pieces here on the left side. So if I were to give this new user administrative access, they may see some of the same things. But for the sake, we're just going to make this a regular user, and they will see the regular user dashboard. Now, users are typically given a welcome email, and I'm going to do that on an email myself so that I can actually see it. And should we desire, we can also assign a phone number for two-factor authentication. So we fully support the SMS one-time password, which can be sent to the designated number here. I'm not going to do it right now just because it's a little bit harder to show that. But the more fun part is when I get to these pieces down here, these employee details. And so I've already built in a lot of different pieces into my tenant. And this allows me to very, very specifically assign my new user exactly what they need. So I can make them admin for AWS. Maybe it's a CEO or a consultant. We're going to make Robert a consultant. And I'm going to be his manager. So we can, again, make sure that we have proper delegation here. We can also assign employee types. So all of these different pieces will make sense later as we go in and actually use the system. So I'm going to send that email to myself. And we can see that Robert was created as a consultant. He's been given a username, all his proper credentials. And as his manager, I can see everything that goes on here. So everything I just put into the system shows up. Now, if we had anything, like Robert was automatically given to via his profile, they'll show up here. And because I had some different pieces set up, Robert was automatically given these different pieces. So one of our internal applications, formerly known as Rally, but now Agile Central, CA Agile Central, has been delegated access to, as well as another application called Sumo Logic. There's the email. I'm going to pull that up real quick so we can all see. So Robert gets his welcome email, and he has to go in and set up his system. So he's given a link, and if he follows that, let me go ahead and sign out. We can see what that does. So we get to say, I have to put in my credential or my email, and then select a password. As we can see, I'm getting some automatic pop-ups here, right? This is automatically built into the system where it says you need to go ahead and provide different pieces. So it said, hey, look, your recovery code or username is invalid. And that's because I put in an email address here and not the actual username here. So with that taken care of, I do have automatic password strength and criteria set up in the system. And if I back up there, we can see it as it literally adds and subtracts that. So I'm going to go ahead and use my password for Robbie. And with that done, Robert is into the system. Now, he's given a very basic Launchpad here. And that's because it takes just a few seconds on the back end for that to catch up to Robert. He gets a notification area, as do all of our admins, or all of our users. It can show them anything that specifically applies to them. So users are never kind of left in the dark. They have a log of what's been going on in the system and what's going to be applying to them. Now, if I hit the home button again, there we go. We can see that the applications that were given to Robert automatically showed up on his dashboard, or his Launchpad per se. So he has access to these off the bat. If I click in here, some of the different pieces are going on, and I'm going to get an error. That's the fun part about live demos. So I got an error here and said, hey, look, the password you entered is incorrect. So something on the back end did not work. Robert can then use that information to send to anyone in his IT help desk. Now, I can assign Robert easy access to different applications. I'm going to do that real quick. I log in as my administrator. You can see that Robert is down here. He's a consultant. And I need to give him access to an additional application, and not just the ones that I already have here. So we can do that through rules. And rules are important in CA Identity Service because they determine who gets access to what. So I've got a couple already set up, but I'm going to create a new one because this is the easy way to get someone access. We're going to call it Robert's rule. We're going to add a filter here. And this is where I get to determine how I want to delegate what Robert gets. So I've got different pieces here. I can select by department or title, just based on what I already have in the system. I know that Robert is a consultant. We're going to continue to say, hey, Robert needs to have access to something else. I'm going to say Google Apps, which I already have onboarded in the system. And if I want to get even more specific, I can add attributes into this, where I have different pieces that Google Apps are pulling. I'm not going to specify anything there. And then I get to test the rule. I get to say, does this work the way I want it to work? And so I can say I'm going to select Robert, and it says Robert will get a new account. So I'm going to finish that, and that will apply. So now that brings us to a good question, good point here to really talk about applications and how they work and what they do. So I just gave access to one application to Robert, and I already had that set up in the back end. So as we can see here, I've got different applications listed. I've got Google Apps. I've got some Play ones that I've been testing with, as well as some of the ones like Active Directory, which are more people source style apps. But to add an app, it's very simple. I can click on Add a New App, and everything that shows up here is a predefined app that has bidirectional integration. So if it's Active Directory or AWS, I can make sure that I give those specifically out. Now, I would go ahead and do some AWS. I don't want to display my public and private keys to everybody here, but just to kind of go through the motions here, what we can see is that if I click into one of these, it's going to ask me for different credentials. And if I apply these, let me go back out because I already have AWS added, I can see the configuration of that. And I can test the connection to it. And what we're going to see here is I get a green check mark. And I can also map different attributes through these settings. So I've got discovery of usernames, here are the attributes. And see, this automatically pulls from my AWS instance. So if I have policies that I want to give access to, I can select them here. You can also get read-only attributes that come up from the discovery as well. We also have termination options. For AWS, it's just going to be a delete option, but for different applications, such as sensitive applications, if we have a people source per se, I can disable the account as well. And for AWS specifically, I have a single sign-on capability here, which allows me to enable and disable that. So let's go back to Robbie real quick and just see what accounts he has. So again, all of his information right here and all of his accounts. So there we go. We saw that Robert was given an account to Google Apps after I assigned that rule to him. If I log back in as Robert, that's automatically popped up on his dashboard. we get some redirections, and we get the standard terms of service for Google. So different organizations may be using Google Apps, and that's fine. So all you have to do is accept it. And we're going to wait for Google here. And he'll be set up with his own mailbox and anything that he has normally would have access to in Google. So again, it's very simple. It reduces all the kind of administrative backend that I really have to worry about because I can just assign this through a rule. I can make it very, very, very seamless for my users to gain access to the applications they need on a daily basis. So that takes us to a point where we can say, hey, look, that's what a regular user's experience should be, pending that you don't get a 401 or a 500 error or something like that. Eventually, sometimes it does happen. But for administrators, they may want to be a little more specific in how they interact with the system. And that comes in the form of, hey, I need to define how users are coming in. So in my case, I've got Active Directory set up. And this is typically a very painless setup. There are a couple configuration options that you really have to take under consideration when you're doing this, which is I need to have my Active Directory properly exposed. And then we do require an agent to be installed, which is a seamless download from Identity Service. Now, once I'm already linked up, I get a whole log, which is going to say, hey, look, I've got sync. I've got a specific time that happens. If I have any failure to update, which I see I've got a couple up here, it's going to tell me that. And then, of course, it'll tell me all the syncs that it's already done. Now, the nice thing about PeopleSource, or a HR app-like, or some sort of app where I have people coming in from, is that we can do some correlation of accounts. And if I look up here, I've got 3 rogue accounts and 15 total accounts. And I can click into this. This is a very good way to say, hey, look, I've got accounts who I brought in, but I don't know if they match up specifically to what I want to do or how I'm using my system. So these are managed accounts. These are healthy. If we open these up, it's going to say, hey, look, this is where this account resides and if it's managed by a rule. But I also have more than just managed accounts. I have a drop-down box here. And what this allows me to do is say, hey, look, I've got rogue accounts. And rogue accounts are a particular troubling issue when we think about Active Directory or any type of PeopleSource, because these are accounts that are not correlated, that we don't understand what they're doing, what's happening with them, how they're being used. And so Identity Service can go in and bring this up to us and say, hey, look, you've got these accounts that are out there. We didn't find a way to correlate them between what you're using and what's out there. So you can directly manage that from here if you so desire. If I bring this up, it's going to say, hey, you can do these options on this account. So I can manually link it to a person. I can import it as a brand new user. If I know and trust that account, I can remove it as a more on the other side of the spectrum there, or I can mark it as a service account. So I'm just going to say, let's mark this guy as a service account and resolve that. That will update itself. That account automatically disappears from here. And if I click under here, I can go back to my service accounts and see that it was automatically put there. I also have unmanaged and disabled accounts. So if we do have a termination of some sorts where I do have to disable an account, they appear here. So again, playing with the system, I've been doing this where I've said, hey, look, I'm going to disable these accounts because we don't need to have them automatically running around doing whatever they need. So that is a very, very seamless way, very easy way to bring maybe an Active Directory domain or force, which I have out there, which maybe it manages contractors or maybe it's specific to something, and bring some easy management to it. Now, back to my actual application, I do get to see different pieces that get brought in with it. So this is Active Directory specific. But again, it brings in my groups, any org units that are out there, and it will also understand what I've set that domain up as. Now the rules piece here is simply to say, hey, which rules are applied to this actual application? And this will exist on every application that we see. So if I go to my Google Apps, I do have my rules here. And I can see that I have multiple rules assigned to Google, including the one I created, Robert's rule. So this becomes a very good way to go in and quickly make sure that I'm giving the right access to the right people. And if I have a new administrator, he can come in and actually learn from this and say, hey, look, it's very simple to begin with, and I can use the best practices that my organization is already using to make sure that I do the right things. So that brings us more to the administrative side of identity service, where we're going to talk about some of the features that we have built into identity service here. So I get to build in my own profile for my company. This is an easy way to personalize exactly what I want to see here. Most of the UI is fairly static, but we do allow you to do your own logo. And we, again, want to match up with as much as you're already doing. So for my, my domain, I've already got this set up. But if we, have usernames that we have to follow a particular scheme, we can try and match that here. So the system will also try and learn that if it can, and present that to you when you do your initial setup. Now, like we saw when we logged in, and I have this set up to not bug me for password expirations, but it can be, again, completely configured to your needs. What we have here is the ability to determine how strong we want our passwords to be. I know as an end user myself, having very complex, strong passwords is secure. It's not always the most business friendly. So we allow you to strike that balance wherever you see it fit. And then we give you some ability to control the actual behavior after that. So if someone is constantly coming in and entering in the wrong password, we can lock them out. And then we can also set up timeouts for the actual tenant itself. We have some ability to, again, make sure that the password meets all your criteria and provide that history back as well, so that people can't come in and reuse the same password over and over again. Because, if you're like me, and you deal with security, you know that using new passwords as much as possible is going to help you. If you look at the velocity and the complexity of attacks out there, a lot of attacks that get carried out go and target old passwords because people don't change their passwords like they should. And so this helps battle the ability for your users to make sure that they use new passwords. If we do want to use two-factor, multi-factor authentication, we do it here. And it's a simple click of the button. And as soon as we do this, it will say, I'm going to have my users get a one-time or a SMS OTP so that when they log into the tenant, they get a text message. And that way it becomes something that they have to enter in to make sure that they are who they really are. For PeopleSource, we've touched on this, and I've used the term a couple times, but PeopleSource is very specific. So we have something where I've got maybe Active Directory out there, and I want to make sure that I'm pulling information from it, but I don't want to always write it back to Active Directory. So PeopleSource allows me to set that, where I can say this is my source of truth, and I'm going to pull identities down from this source, and then make sure that when they come into the system, I'm not writing those changes back, because sometimes people go in and they make changes that may be mistakes or maybe are erroneous. We want to make sure that we have a protected source that is what we are going to use as our one source. So that is easy as setting up as which app do you want. I have 3 here that it's showing me that can be used as people sources. Within our product documentation, what we do define is there are some differences in the way that PeopleSource acts, but there's 6 or 7 different applications that we can do this with. I can say Active Directory is going to be my PeopleSource, and I'm going to say that that is my person type. It should be imported. So it's pretty easy. It's, again, seamless. It's quick, and we don't have to do a lot of different head scratching to make sure that this works. I'm going to go ahead and cancel that for now. Now, we talked a little bit about earlier having CA single sign-on as one of my different ways to extend the reach of CA Identity Service. And what we're going to jump to real quick, I'm going to jump to a different browser so that everyone understands where I'm going here. This is going to look very much the same. And I'm going to be in a different tenant here. I'm going to go to my admin options again. And we can see that with this tenant, I already have CA single sign-on integrated with my identity service tenant. And what this allows me to do is say, hey, I've got applications that were coming out of CA single sign-on, and I'm going to make them available to my users on CA identity service. And we have a unified Launchpad here where we would literally open up this little gear here for connectivity. And it's going to go ahead and pull information down from CA single sign-on. And what this allows us to do is go out there and see what we already have specifically defined CA single sign-on and give them access to those applications or what is going to be imported from CA single sign-on. This is set to be done on a daily schedule. There's some considerations around that because we want to make sure that we don't impact the performance of CA single sign-on and CA identity service at the same time. So again, if you have a lot of information out there, sometimes this may take a couple minutes, but generally it's pretty seamless. It takes maybe a minute or two. We do have the Idp login, which is where I was at earlier. This allows us to use CA single sign-on as that Idp so that when users go back and forth, they get directed to CA single sign-on login screen. Now, what's also nice about this setup is that if I have my Launchpad here, where I have all my applications, I can expose my CA single sign-on admin UI through this Launchpad and really protect it, again, from using those rules and delegating access appropriately so that we can make sure that users are out there or users are getting access to the right applications. If I click into that, I'll wait just a second here. There we go. You can see that I was logged in as SSO audit, and then I can go in and I can view things that are out here in my CA single sign-on setup. I can see applications, anything that really goes on. So again, we're extending the reach of CA single sign-on through CA identity service and making sure that we give access appropriately to it. Now with that, if I go back to my admin options, you can see a couple more settings here. You can see organizations. So this is really useful when we say, hey, look, I've got a, maybe a small organization or a bigger organization, and I want to make sure that I delegate access appropriately. And again, like we saw earlier when I was setting up Robert, where I was giving him different pieces, this is where we get to define those. So I can say, I've got departments, I've got person types and titles. These can all be utilized as we go through. Now we can see there's a couple here that are managed by Active Directory. And this goes more to the people source aspect that we talked about earlier, where I have different elements that are getting pulled down, which are, again, we're not writing back to them, we're just exposing them so that I can use them as an organization normally would and not have to go through some of the headaches that they have to when you do a lot of management manually of Active Directory. The same would apply for our different person types. And we didn't have any titles pulled down. The last thing we have here is activity. This is logging for the identity service. And what we can see here is that I have some filters up here that are very simple, very easy to use. And we can see exactly who logged in. I can see all the synchronization options that have been used. I can make sure I have a track of what users are doing. Okay. So with that, there are some different pieces coming out for identity service. We're going to be talking about that as we go forward, and we'll be showing those in the further 101 demonstrations that we do. But right now, I'm going to take a little bit of a talking break, because I know I've just dumped a whole lot of information on everybody, and start looking at Q&A. So Kathy Hadil and the rest of the panelists, we all can jump in here and start talking about any of the questions that have been asked.
Great, thanks, James. So what I'll do is I'll jump in on some of the questions that have come in. So one of the initial questions was, what is the dashboard? Is it a portal? What and we choose what we publish in the dashboard. So the dashboard is the Launchpad, as James is showing you here on the screen right now. It is the, think of it as kind of the end user interface. It's dynamically populated with these links, these tiles to the applications that the user who logged in has access to. And that's determined based upon a couple of different things. James showed you the rules-based engine, which is one way of determining basically who has access to what applications. Another way that it's populated is through the integration, as James talked about, with CASSO, where we integrate with the policy server, and we're presented with a list. Through that integration, we get a list of all the protected applications that are protected by CASSO, as well as a list of everyone who has access to those applications. We take that information into account and leverage that to dynamically populate the Launchpad with not only SaaS-based applications that have been onboarded into CA Identity Service, but also those protected applications that have already been configured, leveraging the policy server with CASSO, so that we can leverage that, so that those rules and those policies don't have to be redefined again. They've already been defined once. We'll preserve that and leverage that information. So that is the dashboard or the Launchpad. And that's how it's populated. Another way it's populated is, so those are all kind of, think of those as administrator defined, who has access to what. We also have a feature that's under validation right now that James didn't show, which I'm sure will be for a future webcast, but we've got the ability to enable form fill. So end users can add an application based upon, so if it's their personal Facebook account or Twitter account, something that wouldn't necessarily be set up through, by an administrator or by an application owner, because it is something that potentially is used, but yet may not be, an enterprise account. It's more of a personal account. So you'll have users will have the ability to also populate the Launchpad, leveraging that form fill capability. We've got some feedback on the error message for invalid username. Good feedback. We definitely will reconsider that error message. I know exactly what you're talking about on that as well. So another question that was asked was, does it support consumer users, net banking users, approval workflow? So let me ask you, so from a consumer standpoint, it depends on the use case. And I'm saying that, but this is leaning much more towards kind of enterprise use cases versus consumer use cases. And I'll tell you the reason why is we don't support things like social login. We don't support things like self-registration and those types of things. So, so it doesn't have, I think some of the key things, particularly for pure consumer type applications. It is something from a consideration standpoint, but I want to be fully transparent. It's not necessarily a target use case right now. We're focusing very much on enterprise. Another question is, does it support automatic provisioning for on-premise applications? So we support the rich provisioning with entitlements for those applications that we have built, those rich bidirectional connectors that James talked about. You'll see here they are SaaS-based applications at this point. On-premise applications, it's something that comes up every once in a while, and we've tossed around the idea of having maybe some kind of, on-premise gateway that would enable that. But right now, that's not something that we're supporting, with the exception of we do provision to Active Directory. So Active Directory could be on-premise. That rich bidirectional Active Directory connector does have that capability. For MFA, today it supports SMS text, but things like, where you have the biometric, retina scans, fingerprint recognition, that is something that's pretty high on the list for what we're looking to build out additional capabilities as it pertains to what we refer to as kind of advanced authentication or risk-based authentication. So that is definitely something that is under consideration, quite frankly, pretty high on the requirements list. Another question that was asked is if the customer doesn't have CAFSO but wants to integrate with existing non-CAFSO solution, will it be feasible? Yes, you can integrate with non-CAFSO as from an IDP perspective, so you can do that. What you won't get, which is one of the large benefits of integrating with CAFSO and existing CAFSO deployment, is you won't have that integration that provides us with that, as I described, that list of protected applications and the list of who has access to those applications. So those won't dynamically populate within the Launchpad. However, you could set up rules to be able to then have access to those protected applications with another third-party FSO solution. I'm going to keep going down the list here. Can I have multiple people sources? For example, a customer has an HR system. So you can use Active Directory as that people source. Another thing that can be, there are other applications as well that can be considered, you know, your people source. And James, if you, yeah, because we already set it up as Active Directory there, but within the solution, you have the ability to be able to, like if you've onboarded Google Apps and a couple of others. Another thing, though, that's important to note is we do, the solution was fully written James is showing you here, so we've kind of got you can choose the app that's been onboarded to be your people source. But another method would be the solution was fully, basically think of it as fully API driven. So the UI can be considered somewhat independent of all the back end. Everything's called through an API. So we have a published API. We call it the person CRUD API. So you can leverage that API to tie into, even if it happened to be a homegrown system that is the source of your identities, to be able to create and update and delete identities within the solution in an automated and programmatic fashion versus the manual fashion that James showed in the beginning of the demo. So you've got that. So you've got flexibility there and different options. So there's another question for, we currently use Identity Manager. Do you see this as a replacement or a partner app? It's most certainly a partner app. Identity Manager today has very rich capabilities as it pertains to provisioning, and quite frankly includes additional capabilities from a governance standpoint. So we see this as kind of complementary for those organizations that are more required to onboard these and support these SaaS-based applications in a rapid fashion to meet the speed of the business. So, so it's certainly more complementary. I don't want you to think that this is a replacement for Identity Manager, particularly for organizations that are leveraging Identity Manager for provisioning a lot of on-premise applications, because as we described earlier, Active Directory is the only on-premise app that we're supporting. There was a question for European folks, what are the plans to host identity service in Europe or, quite frankly, outside of North America? It's definitely something that we're looking into and considering. We still host today in North America, but recognize that there will be requirements outside of North America, so stay tuned on that one. There's another question. It was mentioned that an agent is required to manage Active Directory. Is the agent to be installed on the domain controllers, and is this agent only required for StrongSync? So that agent, it's a very small, think of it as kind of like a little gateway agent that enables the communication between CA Identity Service and Active Directory. It does not have to be installed on the domain controller. Can be installed you know, pretty much anywhere. It just needs to be able to have that connectivity to be able to communicate with Active Directory. So, so if you want to enable that Active Directory integration, you would need to install that. Any other, I think I might have caught all the questions there as I read through them, but I didn't miss any. But I guess given that we still have a few more minutes as well, I'll ask that anyone who's attending, if you want to ask a verbal question, just hit pound 6. It will unmute your unmute your phone, and you can ask the question while we still have a few more minutes here.
And while we're waiting for those questions to come in, just so we know, and I did glance over this as I was looking through some of the features that we do have. There are these applications here, which we've talked about. Hey, these are very specific, very pre-built, rich bidirectional connectors, which we've, built into the identity service. But a lot of questions I get asked when I talk about this product to customers is, hey, I've got different applications, different SaaS applications out there, and I want to make sure that I can bring them under management, or at least bring them under visibility, so that I know and can delegate access to them. And so that's where we have this, hey, you didn't find your app piece right here. So we can create SAML-based connectors to your different applications if they're SAML aware. And we do some very basic setup where maybe we do a metadata exchange, but we allow you to customize that and, again, tie down all the specifics of what attributes I'm going to pass back and forth, and use those to make sure that we bring that under management, we bring the most value to you. So, good deal. I think you're go ahead.
Yeah. So while we're waiting for there's a couple of more questions that came in through the chat. Does it have something on identity governance, reporting, identity analytics? So what we do within the solution, James showed you one of the features with rogue account detection. We have the ability to be able to, as well, you can see, by person what accounts they have, what level of access they have. So there's some visibility from that perspective as well. And from a reporting standpoint, we've got the ability to see activity, the activity logging. Users have access as well, and we'll be exposing that API as well to be able to do the queries. So here on the screen, you can filter down based on dates and categories, and people will also be exposing that via an API, so that you can just call an API if you want to export that externally as well. So you'll have a couple of different options there. There's a question, which is available for trial or demo? It is available for trial or demo, and I think, James, do you have that in your slides there with the link?
I don't. I can pull it up real quick, though.
Okay, so while he's pulling that up, there is a free 30-day trial. We encourage everyone to go out and feel free to access the trial. Once you sign up for the trial, you will be immediately provisioned a tenant. And we encourage you to do that and to give it a spin. We'd be interested in your feedback on that as well. There's another question in the chat. Are you certifying apps into a marketplace for use in Identity Suite? So if I'm understanding that correctly, I think what you're asking is, as we support these applications through these rich bidirectional connectors, enabling provisioning, can we leverage those in Identity Suite? So there are ways in which we've spoken with other customers as well that can be achieved, because if you're leveraging Identity Suite and you're leveraging something like Active Directory or Active Directory groups or some method of identification for who's supposed to have access and be provisioned to, we can leverage that as well. We can connect into the Active Directory, we can pull in the Active Directory groups, and we can leverage the groups in our rules to say, if you're a member of this Active Directory group, then you should be provisioned a Salesforce account with this level of permissions within Salesforce. So it can be achieved depending upon the particular deployment and the architecture of the deployment, but that would be kind of one way of achieving that, where you'd be able to leverage the rich bidirectional connectors that we have for those SaaS apps if you happen to be an Identity Suite customer.
Yeah, and just to add on to that, we are adding applications onto this one, or this add new app for identity service as well, as we do go through and verify and set up some of these different apps for companies that have expressed interest in working with this solution, they do get added here.
And it is, and again, just it's worth mentioning, again, I know that you mentioned earlier, James, but any application down the bottom there, you didn't find your app, create a SAML-based single sign-on. So any application that supports SAML 2.0 can very easily be added through a few clicks. You can enable that federation as well. So always keep that in mind that you don't have to wait for us to build that rich bidirectional connector. You can actually leverage this generic SAML support that we have. Any other questions? If you have a question, again, it's #6 to unmute your phone. All right. And I've caught, I think, everything in the chat and the Q&A. So, Hadil, I think we're ready to close out. Any closing comments?
Yeah, no, thanks everyone for joining the call today. And as I mentioned earlier, we will host this every month on the second Tuesday of every month. And we'll be covering new capabilities that get released in the product. As Kathy and James mentioned, we're constantly adding and improving the product. So we'll be happy to share the latest capabilities with you on the next call. And if there's anything, if there are any questions or if you need any more information on the product, just go to ca.com under Identity Management, Identity Service. You'll find all the product information as well as the link to the free trial that I shared in the chat. And with that, we're ready to close this call. Thank you all for joining and have a great day.
Thank you, everybody.